Greetings everyone. In this video I want to talk about relationships again and what I mean by there's a shell of every source player and every level in this game. Your consciousness determines what level you are on.
Greetings. This infinite source truth is made possible by the generous contributions and support of viewers like you. Please consider making a contribution now. Thank you.
When I'm talking about you in a relationship or meeting another source player, their consciousness level, they have a shell of their avatar on each frequency level. Now, it's a placeholder. It's a placeholder for that individual should another source player who's of a higher frequency, should they be in their soul group script for another higher frequency source player. Say you have a source player who's at frequency level 4. They're in the red zone. They're the same as being soulless because they have not entered their soul cage and got the strong source self connection and unlocked their script. Okay? So their consciousness level is in the red zone. The consciousness level is what gets elevated. Okay? Now, your avatar, your shell, on each frequency level, your consciousness determines which shell you're occupying at the time. And your consciousness level is your frequency level. All right? Now, those shells of you at higher frequency, if you're in the red zone, you have no, your consciousness is in the red zone. You're eating the animals. Now, you are intentfully eating the animals. There is a difference. Well, this isn't the video to get into that. When your intention is to eat, kill and eat, or have someone else kill and you eat, that's an intent. That is what keeps you in the red zone. Now, if you accidentally ingest something, or you're eating something and it's not your intent to eat flesh and blood, or if you step on an ant and you kill it, or you eat an insect in your vegetables, that's not the same as you intentionally going and getting a slab of meat, putting it on your plate and eating it. It wasn't your intent. So those things don't count, only whenever you were eating things with intent. Now, you have a shell on each frequency level. Whether you're at home in that shell, you may not be, okay? But you have a placeholder. If a higher frequency source player is interacting with you, they are interacting with you, your shell, on whatever frequency level that source player is on. If they're a 7 and you're a 4, okay, they are dealing with the, I'm going to say, shell that has a scripted response based on where the consciousness level of that source player actually is. As you go up the frequency ladder, it's very hard to find another source player. Well, it's hard to find source players, except for the ones that are in your soul group, because they're like written into your original script, and they're your supporting characters and players that you are playing the game with and you have made contracts with before you came into this game for however many lives you were going to experience. Different timelines you were going to experience. I'm going to call it different bingo cards you were going to experience. More opportunities to escape based on different timelines. But that's the timeline issue, and I'm talking about frequency level issue. Now, that person's consciousness, you're on a 7, and that person's consciousness is on a 4. You're not really communicating and talking to that person down on level 4, the real fractal. You're talking to based upon that person's consciousness level of where they are. Now, can you connect with that person? Yes, it requires you to intentionally connect with that person on a lower frequency level. Now, that takes energy out of your synergy cell. It uses energy out of your synergy cell, that's non-retrievable energy, for you to connect with intent to a lower frequency source player, to their consciousness on a lower frequency. Now, you're playing a game, and that person, unless they're a significant part of your script or a significant part of your life that you have included, it doesn't really affect you, and it has nothing to do with you if you really look at what your game is. Now, if it is your spouse, yes, that can affect you. So, a spouse that's on a lower frequency level, for you to really connect with that person's consciousness, you have to use intent and you have to use synergy cell energy to do it. Most of the time, you're just going to go on and you're going to deal with that shell, that placeholder, and you're going to go on with your life and your game, and you're going to continue to raise your frequency. You can't worry about other source players who are choosing to not move their frequency and their consciousness up frequency levels. Now, what does this mean when you start getting higher frequency? Okay, there are a lot fewer source players that are outside of the box. And the chances of you're actually meeting one outside of the box is even slimmer than you meeting many others, all right? It's the way the game is set up. You move on, you move up, and the other source players have the choice of keeping their consciousness level and their frequency level where they're at, or they can start becoming awakened and decide that they want to do the work that they need to do to remove things, bad choices, frequency lowering choices from their game, and then their frequencies will start to rise. Now, this is where it gets very difficult whenever I say that you get what your frequency match to. It will be harder to attract a source player who is a frequency match to you, since so few source players are in the upper frequency dimensional planes. It will be, well, it could be more difficult to connect with those source players. Well, you can figure that one out. You can ask your source self. You know, if there is anyone of your frequency level that's a source player, even in your city or town, okay, that is actually a frequency match, that is a consciousness frequency match. Now, what I will say is if you find someone who is at the frequency level that you're at and their consciousness level is on that frequency plane, well, it doesn't mean it's going to stay there. It could rise or it could fall. And in that case, then that person would no longer be on the same plane, but they made it up that high because all their frequency bodies had to be on the same plane for a certain length of time and tested before they can rise to the next frequency level. So if they actually had a consciousness level that was at a 9, then that means all of their frequency bodies had to rise to that 9 at some point in time, because you cannot advance a frequency level without all the pieces coming together within the soul cage and going up a level. Okay? Now, once you go up, can you fall? Oh, yes, you can fall back down. Your individual bodies can fall back down. Your emotional, yes, they can all start falling back down because of choices or attitudes or how you look at the game. Yes. So, climbing up is harder, okay, is harder. Crossing the individual frequency plateaus is harder than falling. And then if you fall, it's easier to rise back up to that place that you had reached than advancing further. So, I'm sure that's a lot of information for you to try to comprehend and gather. You need to really listen to this video, maybe a few times through, and really listen and try to comprehend what I shared. All right? You really need to listen to it a few times and let it soak in as to what I have shared, how this game is set up. Now, if you find the information that I share in these videos benefits you, then it benefits you to say thank you via gift via PayPal. The link is in the description box below. Abundance, health, and prosperity to you.